Picking just 10 JRPGs was a much more formidable task than I had originally anticipated. With over 40 plus years of amazing games dating all the way back to the NES, I finally narrowed down my personal top 10. If you agree or disagree with any of these, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. Fire Emblem: The Blazing Blade, also simply known as Fire Emblem for the Game Boy Advance in North America, a Nintendo franchise staple at this point in time. It was the 7th in the franchise, but first to get a release outside of Japan. The gameplay, which draws some earlier Fire Emblem entries, features tactical combat between armies on a grid-based map. Characters are assigned different classes that affect abilities and can permanently die if defeated in battle. Characters use different weapons and work around a little rock, paper, scissors system. Swords beat axes, axes beat lances, and lances beat swords. You also have bows, flying units, cavaliers, magic units. You have a strategy of who you want to move where and who to attack while making yourself vulnerable to an enemy with an advantage over yours. The story revolves around protagonists Lynn, Ellawood, and Hector as they navigate story-driven missions while you take the role of an unseen player named Tactician directing the army. Campaign is divided into chapters, which generally begin with story elements presented through the use of scenes, animated with still images of the main characters. Then, followed by a battle with enemies. The game also has a social link type system where positioning two characters near each other for a set number of turns will increase your support ranking with them, with the ranks going from C to A and sometimes even S for romance options. I can't recall how many times I pair two people together to see what their custom epilogue would be. It started my love for Fire Emblem, which has continued until this day. Level 5 already developed one hell of an RPG, and arguably best in the franchise, Dragon Quest VIII. Now, my personal favorite JRPG by them would be the underrated White Knight Chronicles for the PS3 in 2010. White Knight Chronicles begins in the kingdom of Balandor, where Princess Cisna is having a coming-of-age banquet. Leonard, the main protagonist, his childhood friend Yuli, and the Avatar, your own created character you can use even in the online multiplayer, are tasked with delivering wine for a kingdom party. During this party, the king, Baltos, who is Cisna's father, is killed by a man in dark armor. Leonard leads Cisna down into the armory below, and he uses some strange gauntlet called the Arc, which allows him to merge with armor, which he becomes the White Knight. After eliminating a large monster, Cisna is kidnapped, and Leonard and crew are tasked with rescuing the princess, with him now having the White Knight at his command. Now, the battle system is somewhat similar to Final Fantasy XII, which is a real-time system where the battle mode can be initiated when walking into enemies roaming on the map. Before a battle, the player optionally comes into a battle preparation menu, which you can do anytime, and you can choose up to 3 sets of up to 7 commands for each character in the party. This is called a command setup, and you can save a bunch of your own custom combos. You can take certain abilities that use 2 AP or whatever, and 3 and 5, and then it adds up to so much, and you can string together your own combos of certain abilities tied together. You can control one of the characters while the others are controlled by AI. You can also transform into the White Knight, especially for big bosses, by using action chips, which are acquired by defeating enemies. This is another hidden gem on the PS3. I think every fan of the genre should give it and its sequel a try. This may be the first console JRPG I've played. Paper Mario was such a radical difference in what I knew Mario games to be like, from Super Mario Bros. On my Game Boy to Super Mario 64. The story is as bare bones as other Mario games are, where Bowser, kidnaps Peach, and you go on a quest to rescue her. But it's hilarious, and the combat is fun, with these equipable badges, and has sort of a quick-time event with combat to keep you engaged. The worlds are beautiful, and as charming as ever. There's a sense of adventure and exploration, and the game just oozes charm. Now, Paper Mario combines traditional role-playing elements with concepts and features from the Mario series. For the majority of the game, you control Mario. You can jump, use his hammer to overcome even physical obstacles in the world, as well as combat. Many of the game's puzzles are based upon the abilities of Mario's partners, who each have a specialized skill requiring, for progression in the game. Now, Thousand Year Door, on paper, is better in every way, and unfortunately, the last true Paper Mario game, but the original has too much nostalgia for me and takes the win. Pokemon Red and Blue, along with the anime, were my gateway into Pokemon as a kid. What started as a kid-friendly monster-catching game skyrocketed to becoming a now billion-dollar franchise. Choosing one of your 3 starter Pokemon lets you know where you stood among your friends. Were you a Charmander, Bulbasaur, or Squirtle starter? The trademark, phrase, gotta catch 'em all, was only half the game. The other half was exploring an amazing 2D world filled with trainer fights and gym battles where we all learned the rock, paper, scissors style of what is strong and weak against what type. A game that changed the industry and lives of little kids all around the world, encouraging them all to become the best there ever was. This is a bit of a stretch because it's technically an American-developed RPG, but damn it, let me have this. I'm a huge Dragon Ball fan, up until Super, that is, but that's not what this video is about. Dragon Ball Z, The Legacy of Goku 2, improved upon every complaint about the first game and made one hell of a sequel. Larger quest with a ton more variety, better graphics and audio, and way better action during the long grind and boss fights. From only 1 playable character to 5 with 1 hidden character, you know who it is, swapping between them on the fly when available. The game picks up after the Namek and Frieza sagas from the first game, and this one deals with the Android and the Cell sagas. The game introduced several new concepts to the series. The first was transformations, obviously, such as going Super Saiyan, which allowed characters to become temporarily stronger at the cost of slowly draining your energy bar, which you would use for energy attacks. It also introduced the Scouter, which allowed players to look up the stats of other characters in the game, as well as basic information about them. And it also introduced charged melee attacks, which allowed characters to unleash a powerful physical strike, after a short charging period. And you can also upgrade characters to further increase their stats with capsules that were scattered and hidden around the game world. If you're a fan of Dragon Ball, this is one of the best games ever made from this franchise. Now, most people today would say Persona 5 is their all-time favorite Persona, or even Persona 3. My favorite of the franchise, however, would be Persona 4. Persona 4 Golden specifically. This game was in my Vita longer than I'd care to admit, and was one of the only reasons many people even got the system to begin with. Persona 4 takes place in a fictional Japanese countryside and is indirectly related to the other ones. The player named protagonist, is a typical high school student, as they all are, who moves to the countryside from the city for a year-long period. During his stay, he becomes involved investigating mysterious murders with a group of friends, while harnessing power to summon physical manifestations of their psyches known as persona. Gameplay is divided between, the real world and the mysterious TV world, where various dungeons filled with monsters known as shadows await. Days are broken up into various times of day, and you can engage in various, real-world activities like joining school clubs, taking part-time jobs, reading books, spending time with characters, and all of this causes time to advance. Now, as the game progresses, you form friendships with other characters known as social links, which are each represented by one of the major arcana. As these bonds strengthen, the social links increase in rank, which gives you bonuses for creating new personas in the Velvet Room. Additionally, strengthening social links with the main party members grant them additional abilities, such as the ability to perform a follow-up attack or an additional ability for their persona. The murder mystery plotline of this game and the characters are the reason I put this game over Persona 5 in overall score, even if 5 has better gameplay and music. The Last Story, a game written by none other than Final Fantasy creator himself, Hironobu Sakaguchi, and one no one expected to release in the West. Then came Operation Rainfall, which was a video game-oriented fan campaign founded to promote the release of games not available in North America. Beginning in 2011, it was designed as a push specifically for the release of Xenoblade Chronicles, The Last Story, and Pandora's Tower, 3 games released late in the lifespan of the Wii. The campaign was acknowledged by Nintendo, and though they initially announced they had no plans, all 3 games were eventually released in North America. While we all know about the runaway success of what the Xenoblade franchise would become, The Last Story I feel deserved more love at the time. The story focuses on a group of mercenaries looking for work on Lazulis. One of them, Zale, dreams of becoming a knight. After receiving the mystical mark of the outsider, he becomes involved with a noblewoman named Callista in an ongoing war between humans and the beast-like Garak. During gameplay, the player controls Zale and undertakes missions on Lazulis, incorporating elements of tactical and stealth gameplay. You are primarily controlled, using Zale using the Wii Remote from a fixed third-person view, but you can also use the Wii Remote and Nunchuck, or the classic controller, which I recommend, but even so, thankfully, the game does not really utilize motion controls. Now, combat plays out in real time, with attacks either happening automatically when a character is within range or manually. Actions such as dodging and movement are done manually, while some other actions happen automatically. You can also move to take cover behind objects, which allows you to break an enemy's line of sight on them or creep along walls. As happy as I was this game came to the West, it was the sequel to another game in that fan campaign that goes above even this on the list. Xenoblade Chronicles 2. You either love the game or hate the game. Now, there seems to be no in-between on account of the fact that there is a gacha system built in. Now, while you don't spend any real money on this, grinding for resources to make rolls for new blades turned off a lot of people. I know myself, I spent around 20 hours, fishing just to get the last blade I needed to unlock them all. I was getting nothing but dupes. Now, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 takes place in Alrest, a world covered in a sea of clouds where humans live atop and inside large creatures known as Titans. Some people, known as drivers, can summon powerful beings known as blades from crystals. After he is hired from a salvaging mission, a young salvager, your playable character named Rex, meets a legendary blade named Pyra, indirectly becoming her driver, and promises to take her to a fabled paradise called Elysium. Throughout the journey, Rex and his party are pursued by Torna, an organization who seek her power for their own means. You directly control one of the drivers in your party, who wields one of their blade weapons, to auto-attack and perform arts. Pressing an arts button as an auto-attack immediately allows them to cancel, and you ending the animation of the auto-attack and use the art immediately. That's a little trick a lot of people like to use. After a cooldown, the driver can blade switch to change their active blade. Each blade gives their driver a different set of arts. So you can have healing arts, ranged arts, melee up close arts, there's all kinds. And it's determined by the blade's weapon type and the specific driver. Now, the reason this game edges out 1 and 3, in my opinion, is the cast of characters and story. I just enjoyed both of them more in this game. Now, as a personal recommendation, I would say play with the Japanese voiceovers, because for me, the English ones in this game just can't even compare to the ones in Xenoblade Chronicles 1. If you made it this far, I'm sorry. You're probably going to click away before finding out my number 1, because number 2 on this list is... it's Final Fantasy VIII. Yes, I know, sue me, burn me at the stake, publicly humiliate and laugh at me, but this is my favorite Final Fantasy, not only from the PS1 era of games, but of all time, and a lot of it has to do with me being kind of a sucker for a good love story, which we sadly just don't really get in video games that often, if at all. I also recommend playing the remastered version for a lot of quality of life improvements. Set in an unnamed fantasy world with science fiction elements, the game follows a group of young mercenaries led by your main character, Squall. As they are drawn into the conflict sparked by a sorceress named Adia, who seized control of the powerful military state of Galbadia, draws them into conflict. Squall struggles with his role as leader on this quest to defeat the forces manipulating her. As over time goes by, you develop a romance with one of your party members, Renoa. Now, if you played any of the previous Final Fantasies, and I'm sure you have, this plays out the same way with the active time battle system. It is the first Final Fantasy to use realistically proportioned characters consistently, which is partly the reason why I like this a little bit more than 7 as well. I just can never really get over the polygon figures as much, and I'm kind of disappointed that 9 changed the art style as well. I was hoping for another game like 8 for that art style, but it is also the first to use vocal piece as its main theme, and Eyes on Me is a banger, and it foregoes the use of magic points for spell casting. Now, introducing the junction system, the reason everybody hates this game. A battle system based on summon monsters called Guardian Forces, otherwise known as GFs. Assigning or junctioning a GF onto a character allows you to use different battle commands besides like attack with the main weapons, such as you can use magic, GF summons, items. Previous titles, you would use MP, you would use magic points, a limited pool of that, and they were consumed every spell you would use. Now, in Final Fantasy VIII, spells are drawn either from enemies in battle, draw points throughout the world, or by refining items and cards. They're then stocked on characters, you can hold up to 100 each, and are consumed by using them. Now, instead of using these spells, you can also equip them or junction them onto your stats, like strength, vitality, and luck, provided you've junctioned a GF. This gives you flexibility, and it gives you a lot of range of customization, and essentially you can break the game on disc 1, making the game a cakewalk. A lot of people don't like that because it kind of takes away individuality from the characters, but that's fine by me. I like the story of it. I know, call me weird, but that's the main reason I like playing this game a lot. Now, don't even get me started on Triple Triad. It's basically The Witcher 3's Gwent before Gwent in terms of popularity. The best minigame in any Final Fantasy, period, and should honestly be its own downloadable game at this point. A game sadly buried on the Xbox 360, Lost Odyssey is one of the best JRPGs ever made. And yet another game written by none other than Final Fantasy creator himself, Hironobu Sakaguchi. A game criminally underrated and sadly forgotten over time. And I hope people give this a try through Xbox's backwards compatibility. The story follows Kaim, one of a select group of immortals who have lost their memories while confronting threats generated by the world's approaching magical industrial revolution. And he also must face the pain by his returning memories. The gameplay features many staples of this genre, obviously as navigating a world map, random encounters, and a turn-based battle system. If you've played Final Fantasy X, this will feel very familiar to you, using the same conditional turn-based battle system, where certain actions could make your character's next turn come sooner or later, depending on what ability is used. Also with an added QuickTime event for more damage. But where the game truly shines is in its incredible world building, characters, and story. I don't want to spoil anything, but this is one of the few games to cause me to actually shed tears. And some of it was just from reading about Kaim's past memories. One of the great JRPGs of the modern era. If any game on this list deserves your attention, in my opinion, it would be this one. If you made it this far, truly thank you. I hope you enjoyed my list and my poor ramblings and editing attempts at making such a video. I know I'm not that great at it. I've only been doing this like a very short amount of time, but if you enjoyed it, I hope to see you next time.